Hey guys, you're listening to this week's episode. For exclusive content, Q&As, and more, check us out on Patreon. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Swear to God podcast. Looks like we're in the apocalypse now, but first let's enjoy that double shot espresso, am I right? Every week we dive into culture and conversation to chew the flavor out of, from politics in Washington to pop culture in Hollywood. If you know who Mitch McConnell is but still spend most of your rent money on concert tickets, you are not alone. You're in the right place, my friend. Welcome to the Sinners Club. All right, hey everybody. This week's guest was so delightful. She was totally fine with me being a weird internet stranger and just randomly reaching out to her. Her name is Paige. She goes by Not So Paige on TikTok, so check her out before you can't. We'll see what happens with TikTok here. Paige and I, we dove into allyship, sex positivity, hyping yourself up when you need to, and getting out of a toxic relationship. So enjoy. I feel like Colorado's the next up and coming state. Like everyone's kind of getting smart about it and they're like, oh, we should go check out Colorado.
Yeah, it's like the new California, and I actually just got an apartment, and so when I lived
Oh,
in
nice.
Phoenix, I lived in downtown Phoenix and got a studio apartment with a loft, and it was like 950 a month, and then I moved into a house, and it was a 5-bedroom house. It had a garage and a backyard, and it was right outside of downtown, like 20 minutes away, and I only paid 850 a month. And that was 5 bedrooms, backyard, garage, and everything. And
Holy
now,
cow.
yeah, I just got a 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment here, and it's 1,500 a month. I'm like, "Oh my god." Like, you're definitely paying living in this beautiful state, but at the same time, it's like, "Stop moving here because we need housing
Right,
too."
right. Yeah, we're gonna fight
Yeah.
you about it. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. We need housing too.
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah, it's like the new California. Everyone's moving here, everyone wants to be here, and I get it. It's gorgeous. I
Yeah.
love it.
I'm a little older than you. I'm 30, and
Okay.
some of my friends are reaching that place where, they have their lives, they're sophisticated. They've been working the same jobs for a couple of years. They have their first house that they're
Yes.
remodeling. And I'm over here and I'm like, wait a second, what? Like
Right?
you guys got your shit together like that?
Yeah.
What's going on?
People when they tell me like they're getting married, and like some of my friends are on like their second baby, but they're like in a real like
No.
relationship. Yeah, like it's not like
Oh,
whoops, they like planned it. I'm
they
like,
did it on purpose.
oh my god, what do you mean you planned it? Like what are you gonna do? Yeah, it's wild to me. Dull. And I lost my job because I
Oh
mean not to
shit.
get too blunt, but my best friend worked where I was working, and I called her not during work hours and not on the property or anything like that.
Okay.
I called her a "see you next Tuesday," and
Does that
then
mean you guys were really good friends,
we
or
were
what
really
is
good
that?
friends, and I wasn't trying to be like, "Hey," like, I wasn't being rude about it, like, being
Yeah,
aggressive. It was more like, "Hey, you're kinda being, like,"
sure. Yeah.
and but then I blocked her because I just needed a break from our friendship, and
Yeah,
then
just
she
hit the
went to
pause button.
HR. Yeah, she went to HR and got me fired. So I, like, had
What?
just gotten this new car and
Oh,
lost my job, but yeah, and now I have a new job and it sucks, but like that's all part of growing up, playing the game. I hate saying that, but you got to do
yeah.
it. Until you can make money doing
Wow.
what you're passionate about and whatever, just do what you can.
Yeah,
And it's just we're all in the same boat, and I think that's what a lot of people have to remember, like you're not alone in this. There's millions of people that are in their 20s and 30s that are in the exact same boat. Like we're just trying to
absolutely.
get by.
You're not fucking alone. Like, how
Yes,
many women out there are like, "Shit, maybe I need to leave my toxic boyfriend.
exactly,
Maybe I need to figure X, Y, and Z thing out," you know?
exactly, like
And it's okay, especially during 2020 and COVID. It's like
mhm.
all that other stuff that you think that you should have taken care of, it's okay if you're still working through it, right? Like,
Exactly, and
yeah.
2020 with quarantine and everything, like, gives us a time to reflect. It gives us a
Mhm.
time to be in our own head, which is scary, and I think at the
Yeah.
beginning of quarantine, everyone was in their own head and
Yeah.
overthinking everything, but now, like, that we've been in quarantine since, like, March, like, we've been in quarantine since March 13th, and my
Damn.
job just said that we're not going back to the office until June 2021, like, we have so much.
Holy shit.
I know, it just came out today.
I'm, like, in a weird place where I stupidly left Colorado and I was coming to California to be close to my
Mhm.
parents because 'cause they're
Yep.
older, and then I was gonna land somewhere else, like, I
Yeah.
had some 1099 gigs that I was
Yep.
gonna work out, and then COVID happened, and some of those fell through, and so I haven't been as mobile as I wanted, I've kind of
Right.
stayed stuck. And so I can't apply for the, like, PPP stipends,
Mhm.
because I'm no longer a resident of Colorado and I'm not yet a resident of California, and I don't know if
That
I wanna stay in
sucks.
California. So I can't get that extra money, but every friend I talk to, they're like, "Sophie, I've never made this much money in my life." You know, like, the
So much
teachers, all
money.
my teacher friends, they're like, "I was never paid this much teaching college."
Yeah.
I'm like, "How what the fuck?
Right?
How
It's
is that possible?"
insane. It's
Yeah,
insane that how much money that I made. Yeah, I made like each check and it's based off of how much you made in 2019. But like each check that I was getting was 1700 bucks every 2 weeks. And I'm like,
insane.
"Oh, this is amazing."
Yes,
Which
please.
yeah, which let me get my new place, which was awesome.
Oh,
But
that's
like
so
I
cool.
had to get a job, I have to pull my
Yeah,
big girl pants up and do it. But
right.
we're all working through this, but during COVID, being in quarantine and reflecting, I mean, a lot of people are in their heads about the wrong things, but I've really taken the time to I was down in the dumps after losing my job, but then I really like skyrocketed from there and hit the ground running and was like, what can I do with this time? And did all of that. I'm like, what can I do during this time when we're all stuck at home?
Yeah,
And everyone's on the internet right now because what else do you have
exactly,
to do? Like,
exactly.
let's get entertainment, and I am not, I mean, I'm a bubbly, outgoing person on surface level, but, like, I am a homebody, like,
Feel
I
you. I feel you,
just
girl.
yeah, like, I really don't like leaving the house, I don't like making new friends, like, I'm just not
It's
about it.
hard. It's
It
hard. It
is
takes so much
so
energy, doesn't it?
so much energy, especially with girls. It's like, "Why haven't you
Mhm.
texted me today?" And I'm like, "Because I have a life." Like, yeah, so, having internet friends and being able to connect through my Instagram, my TikTok, and now this online store is amazing, especially during COVID. Like, that's my style of making friends is on the internet because real life friends, I'm not about it.
I mean, why not? It's such a unique tool. I mean, to think
Mhm.
about living in this time, it's like, why wouldn't you use that?
Right? This happened about probably about a month ago that I rebranded.
Okay.
And my confidence has just skyrocketed since doing it. Like, it has just helped me so much. And I would so encourage tons of girls to go and do this. Go
That's
out.
awesome.
Yes, go out, even if it's just with your phone and set the timer and take some pictures. That's
Ooh, that
it.
makes me nervous.
Yes, exactly, like, that's how I am, and I take probably, like, 125 pictures, and of those, like, the first time I did it, it was like, there's 5 good pictures that I can choose from,
Yeah.
and then it was like, there's 10 good, and now there's, like, 25 good. And it's all about building confidence, and that's what
Mhm.
I've done with my rebrand. I've built my own confidence, but then sharing the self-care journey too, about tips and tricks.
Mhm.
Let's talk in the comments below. Let's start an online community about taking care of yourself and building confidence, and that's really what my rebrand has become as, the months gone on since I've done it. That's really what it's been all about is just building my self-confidence and sharing self-care too because it's a tough time like we were saying
Oh my
it's such
gosh,
a
yeah.
tough time right now, so we all have to take care of ourselves. That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and I know I mean, it's cheesy to say, but everyone knows, like, the more you take care of yourself, the more energy you have to give to other people, right?
Yes,
The better you're doing,
exactly.
that translates in all of your relationships, personal, work,
Yes.
family, all that jazz.
And I've seen this quote where it's like, you spend most of your time in your head, so you
Mm.
should make that a good place to be. You
Oh
should make that
gosh,
a happy place to be.
it's so true. It's so
Right?
true.
It's so true. Like
Ugh,
you exactly, and that's so hard, especially for people that are our age and living right now. That's so hard. There's so much going on in the world right now.
yeah,
It's crazy. We go on our news feeds and it's insane stuff every single day. There's always something new every day.
and I feel like the more that we're willing to face those things, if we're embarrassed about them, if we're scared, if they're sticky or messy, the
Mhm.
easier it gets. Like, if you put in the work and you face those things, the more confident then you can become and the less problematic
Yes.
those things can
You
be.
just put it out there and, you looking at yourself, you pick out all the tiniest things, like
Oh
the
god. Yeah.
teeniest, tiniest things that you
Yeah.
put out there. You're like, "This is weird, that's weird, this is weird." Just post it. Just do it because honestly, your followers or whoever it is that your audience is not gonna see that tiny little thing that you see.
Right.
And it's gonna build your confidence. Like, I have a big nose. I know I have a big nose. People point it out. I know it's there. But, like, so I'll see a picture and I'm like, God, my nose looks so huge in that. Post it because no one's gonna comment about it. It's such a microscopic thing that is in your head.
Yeah.
Post the picture, no one's gonna comment on it. No
Right.
one.
Right.
And, like, that's just the biggest way to build confidence, and it's really helped me. It's absolutely helped me since the rebrand. For me, it's choosing something to do and sticking with it because that's my
Mm.
biggest struggle is I'm like,
Mhm.
I could make this a thing, and I get really motivated to do it, and I don't know if this is, like, my mental health or what, but, like, I get
Mhm.
really honed in on it, and I'm like, "This is such an amazing idea. Let's go." And
Yep.
then I'll wake up the next day and be like, "This is the dumbest idea ever. This is so stupid. No one's gonna like any of these pictures or whatever." So, what I'm focusing on is consistency. I wanna do all these crazy things, and I want that to be my source of income because let me tell you, working for someone else is not my jam.
Oh my
Oh.
gosh, girl. I have a quote saved on the desktop of my computer because 'cause I've worked for a lot of really great people, and I've worked
Mhm.
for some really shitty people, and I'm
Yeah.
still at the point where I don't have the agency that I want, like, I
Right.
completely relate to that. I work with someone else and their schedule and their needs,
Exactly.
um, and it's fine, and that's what needs to happen right now.
Mhm.
But I completely understand that motivation, that desire. I have a quote, it's a woman who worked for Lin-Manuel Miranda, the guy that created Hamilton. Genius,
Yeah.
awesome, rock star,
Yes.
but she was his assistant or she worked in his office, and she was saying how it was wonderful at first, but then she would go into the office and realize, like, she was assisting him in his dream, and she
Yes.
wasn't getting anywhere. And I think she actually has a really successful podcast now. She might be one of the I don't remember, I'll have to look up who she is, but I was like, "Holy shit, that's it." You just see, like, the
Yes.
days fly by when it's like, "Alright, I'm a yes woman for someone else, and I wanna be"
Exactly.
you know, as trite as it sounds, I wanna be a yes woman for myself, and I think we're at the point in history where there's so much possibility to do that. Once
Mhm.
the economy really recovers, like, if you have that dream, why not delve into the internet and try and build a community? You're not gonna harm
Exactly.
anyone. If you fail, you fail, it's fine, but at least you tried, right? And
Exactly.
I think that that's the place where a lot of people get stuck, like, me even reaching out to you, I was like, "Oh god, why am I doing this? Like, this is idiotic. No one's
Right?
gonna listen, blah, blah, blah," all that stuff, but we're doing it for ourselves, A.
Yes.
It's something you committed to and followed through with, and
Mhm.
then who the fuck knows, you know?
Exactly, and just what you said, what's the harm in just putting it out there? You never know. And, like, there's that tiny voice in our head that's like, "This is dumb. What's the point in this? I'm not gonna get a response, whatever." So what? Just try. Put it out there in the world because you don't know. And it's just so hard because there's so many people out there that are in this exact same position that they're at a dead end job or they're at a job that doesn't help them out and they don't want to be at it. But it pays the bills and that's
Right,
it. Like,
right,
and that's so sad that we're at that point where people have skill sets, but they're not using them because they have to pay their bills. And to
yeah.
use their skill set, they have to go out on a limb. And that's scary. And maybe that's not financially, feasible for them right now.
And I also want to acknowledge, like, I know that it's a very privileged place for me to be like, "Oh, I was able to afford a podcast mic, and I'm thinking of venturing into something online and trying to make an income from that," because a lot of people don't even have
Right.
that opportunity. But for the people that are able to be in that space, I think you're so right. It's like, how willing are you to put your foot on the gas for
Yes.
yourself? And I think one of the awesome things about reaching out to people on the internet is you never know how someone can help service that dream of yours and then how
Right.
you could give back to them. And it's not like rah rah bullshit stuff. It's like
Right.
that could actually be beneficial and healthy and happy
Absolutely.
and awesome.
And, like, you never know what community you're gonna get into by just reaching
Right.
out to someone. Like, you have no idea what community you're gonna be a part of. Like, there's a community out there for everyone. No matter how weird you think your hobby is or how
Right?
strange you think you are, there's always people that are gonna hype you up.
I wanted to ask that because that kind of segues into what you're doing with TikTok, because
Yes.
that's how I discovered you. That must be can you talk me through that experience? And I love how comedic you are on TikTok. I mean, it's
Thank
awesome,
you.
but you talk about really poignant stuff too. It's like, shit, that hit me right in the feels and also made me laugh, you
Yes,
know?
right? And that's just my personality. The TikTok thing just happened. I don't know where it came from because I think I downloaded TikTok and posted my first video on the same day.
Nice.
And that first video was about my vet tech story. I used to be a vet
Oh
tech
my
when I
god.
lived in Arizona.
That story is that
Yes.
story real?
Yes.
Can
Yes.
you tell that story on the pod really quick?
Absolutely.
That's
Of
so
course.
I couldn't
So
believe it. I was like, "Holy shit, this
and
is
like
gold."
and all the comments being like, "This happened at my vet clinic and this happened at mine." So the story
No.
goes, there's so many out there, and apparently it's very, very common, and I had no idea.
I love, like, random cheaters exposed stories like that when you
Right?
don't expect it. Like, n I
Yes.
wouldn't have guessed.
We had crazy stories happen. But yeah, so this husband and wife, they called in and I picked up the phone actually. I took that phone call
Oh my
and
gosh.
they were like, "Our dog is throwing up. We think it ate something. What's going on with it? Should we bring it in?" And our automatic thing is always, "Yes, absolutely. If you're concerned, bring in your pet." So they
Yeah,
bring in their dog and their dog is, throwing up and whatever, and we're feeling around the stomach and you can kind of feel if there's something in there. Like there's kind of like a hard part in the
I
abdomen that you
bet,
can
yeah.
feel. So we're feeling around and we're like, yeah, something's in there. We do an x-ray. We're like, yep, something is definitely in there. And there are kind of two routes we could be like, the first route is we can give it some medication so that it induces vomiting. And that's obviously the cheaper way, but it doesn't always work. But it's
Oof.
always, if you think they ate something and it's small enough, let's try it. Or we can just go in surgically and remove whatever it is since we've confirmed that there's something in there. So they decided to go for the more financial way to go about it and
Yeah.
just do the medication. So we give it the medication and it's vomiting. He's doing great. He's awesome. And and we have to go through like all the vomit
Oh
always go
god.
through. It's awful. You have
I
to do
hope
the
they
same
paid you
thing.
well to do that.
Yes, it's also the same way with poop. If you're waiting for it to poop out something, you have to go through it all.
Oh, lovely.
So yeah, we're going through it all, and this clump comes up, and we're like, okay, like I think this is it. We're feeling, and we do another X-ray. We're like, okay, this is it. There's nothing else in there, and we kind of like crumble it in in the room. I was in there taking notes. And so we uncrumple it and kind of hold it up and there's like and we're like, oh, it must have been this, like it happens all the time. It does happen all the time, like dogs just get into whatever.
Totally,
So we're
totally.
holding it up, it's a pair of panties, and there's just like dead silence in the room and I'm like, what is happening? I'm just like sitting there with my notepad like, what the fuck is happening? And the husband is so white and just completely silent, like mouth so closed, so tight. And the wife goes, "Those are my panties."
Oh my god.
And there's just like dead silence in the room. I could not contain myself. Like,
Oh,
I could
holy
not
shit, I
contain
swear.
myself at
I
all.
swear to God.
And we were like, okay, well, let's just give them the room. So we like exited. They were in the room. They were in there for like 10-ish minutes before they came out. The wife is storming out, and then
Oh
the
my
husband is
god.
kind of trailing after. They didn't pay. We had to call them to collect on the payment later.
Oh
That was
shit.
awkward. Oh
A
my
bad day
God.
got worse for her, right?
Oh, so bad. Yeah. So that was the first TikTok that I ever had. And like, so many people that have worked at vets, whatever, if they're a vet, if they're a tech, whatever, they're like, yes, every clinic has that story. I guess it happens so often, and I had no idea. I had heard it a couple times before, and then it happened to me, and I was like, I want to share my story.
Yeah.
So that was the first one, and that one blew up. It's at like 1.9 million views right now, and that just like blows my mind. And
Holy shit. That's
yeah, and
awesome about that algorithm. Like,
yes.
that app services people in that way, that's awesome.
Yeah, my TikTok. It's crazy. I cannot explain what I did. I'm just on there telling the stories I've always told, and people seem to like it. But then there's always the party poopers that
Oh,
I
no,
get,
are there really?
yes, that are like,
Ugh,
I've heard
people have
this
nothing
story.
better to do? Really?
Right? They're like, "I've heard this story a million times," or they're like, "I can see why that guy cheated on you based on your like, nasty
What?
stuff, and I'm like, "How dare you?"
Whoa, someone actually will message you and say, "I can see why he cheated on you based on your
All
appearance?"
the time. All the time I get that comment.
Garbage.
"I can see why he cheated on you. I can see why he didn't wanna be with you. You should save up for a nose job," and, like,
Oh my god,
honestly,
fuck those
yeah.
people.
Fuck that. With what's going on in the world right now, we all need a little more kindness. We all need a little more kindness. And to take the time out of your
Jesus.
day to
Right, right.
comment that, just saying.
Wow. Ho
Mhm.
Oh, man, that's shitty.
It's
That's really shitty. What do they
awful.
like, do they get off on that? I don't understand.
I
Just
don't
makes their
know.
shitty lives better for 5 minutes. They have to
I don't
troll
know if they wanna
people.
comment back, if they want people to go to their page, if they just want a reaction. I get "Okay, Karen" a lot, which I'm like, Karen in training all the way here, but that, I will accept that. I
We all have
accept
our
that.
lanes, you know?
I know, I get it. Yeah, the people that are like Karen in training, I'm like, "Yeah, I know. I'm
I
aware."
Right? I call it my unbearable whiteness of being. It's like,
Yes,
I try to stay educated and I try to
I know.
apologize and be aware, but it's like, you can't help it sometimes.
Sometimes you just say stuff and you're like, "God, that sounded so white of me. That sounds
Right?
so Midwest of me."
Like, this is
Oh,
painful.
I know. I'm
I
like,
hate myself.
I like to think that I have a great background and I'm educated on different cultures, but then sometimes it just comes out and I'm like, "God, I sound privileged as fuck."
I'm gonna take you on a ride. We're gonna
I did try her. She was married.
why you're so salty. I'll still take a bite.
And then he said, "Don't you just love the smell of napalm in the morning?"
We be faster than Django.
We are in the apocalypse now.
I can't stop, won't stop.
Did try her. She was married. Grab mother.
Stop.
Hey, at least you acknowledge it in those moments. A lot of people are just like, they don't even get it.
Yes.
And it was awesome. I saw in your link tree you had the link to BLM, which was
Yes.
great.
Of
That's so
course.
important. With that many followers, it's like,
Absolutely.
hell yeah, you're using your platform for good. So those people need to suck a dick.
Yes, absolutely.
Honestly.
Have a conversation. That's my thing all the time. And I hate it when people post on Facebook and they're like, if you believe in this, unfriend me now. That's no way to go about it. Have an educated conversation calmly. I am so about that, about if someone has a completely different, like if someone, let's say, for example, is anti gay marriage,
Oh gosh.
if you're, and I am so for that, like, if you wanna be unhappily married like the rest of us, go for it.
You have
Go
that right,
for
god
it.
damn it.
Go for it. Like, absolutely. There's
Join the
nothing.
misery.
Exactly, like, if you wanna do it, go for it, of course, but, like, there's no point in screaming at someone if they don't believe 100% what you believe. Have an
Yeah,
educated argument.
right.
Doesn't have to be a conversation, it can be an argument, but be educated and calm and be willing to hear their side of why they think that way because it could broaden your horizon, and I think
Totally.
as far as education goes, as being a white woman, and trying to stay up to date and educated on Black Lives Matter movement, like that's a great part of it. If I say something and it's offensive, I am so open. Tell me why and educate me. Help me understand because
Mhm.
it's not me trying to be offensive. It's not me trying to be some type of way. It's that I don't know. Educate me on it. I am so willing. And just seeing the two sides of that protest going on outside my house and they're just screaming at each other. I'm like, that gets you nowhere. Have a conversation with each other. Why do
Yeah,
you believe this? And why do you believe this? Meet somewhere in the middle
yeah,
because you're going to enlighten the other side. Even if you
yeah.
don't think it's possible, it's possible. Something you say is going to stick with them.
Totally. I think that's so important, and I think a lot of people say that they're willing to listen and
Mhm.
talk and engage in conversation, and they're not really. And
Yes.
I find myself falling into that trap too, like,
Mhm.
I have a lot of strongly held opinions and beliefs, and then if someone's countering them, I, like, kind of feel my blood boiling. But I've really been trying this year especially
Yes.
to, like, let those things go. Yeah, like I am a full supporter of BLM, and I've been
Yes.
to some protests like carefully trying to social distance.
Mhm.
Um, it comes down to like a lot of people feel like their existence is threatened,
Mhm.
and I understand how angry you could be if you're just like looking at the face of your oppression and feeling like your
Yes.
message isn't being communicated.
Absolutely.
And I think that I've heard a lot of cops say what happened to George Floyd was murder, and we don't condone it and we don't support it. And so categorizing an entire group of people as
Exactly.
good or evil, I think is really problematic. It must be impossible to be a cop a lot of the time. Like fuck.
Exactly. Like,
And
ugh,
if we can give people the resources if they're faced with a situation like that, to fight the racist triggers that they might
mhm.
have, to be able to stand up to authority and be like, hey, this is wrong, while still feeling like they could keep their job and their security and do the right
Yes.
thing, then we all win.
Yes.
And it's just so it's been really a reckoning, and it's been hard to see. And I've learned a lot. I made the mistake of actually like leaning on a lot of my Black friends too much at first when I
Mhm.
wasn't really supporting them. And I was like, tell me what to do, tell me what to do. And they said, we just need you to hold space for us and educate yourself and then listen when we're ready to talk about it. So it's this thing that keeps moving and growing, and we keep learning every day. And I feel like we're headed in the right direction. It's just taking time. And you're right, it's such a supercharged environment right now,
Yes.
especially with COVID. So it's
Mhm.
really, really hard for people. So I've been talking to my parents a lot. I was like, "Was it this bad even back in the
Yes.
60s?" And they're like, it was bad and there was a lot of violence, but this feels different. Like people feel like they're more polarized. I have a lot of friends that would probably classify themselves as liberals,
Mhm.
and they're like, unfriend me if you're a Republican, or you're a
Right.
piece of trash if you're a Republican. I'm like, well, how much of the electorate is that? And how many Americans
Yes.
are that? Are you just going to write them off? Just like you would hope if someone finds out, what your registration is
Yep.
on your voter form, that they wouldn't be like, oh, rotten hell, without
Yeah.
even talking to you.
Exactly.
Like, I get where there are
Ugh,
some places that people draw the line. Like, maybe if I was a Black person, I wouldn't really want to have a conversation like that right now. But
right.
I think for the rest of us, it's like, we have to, or else,
Yes.
you know, as Americans, I think we have that responsibility, and it can only help, right? Talking can't
Yes.
hurt, I don't think.
Exactly. And I think it's tough for people that are my age and that are white. We are constantly educating ourselves. At least I am. I'm trying to. But I think having patience with that too is
Mhm.
if something like if something slips out, obviously
Mm.
there's a line, but if something comes out,
The
I
cancel culture is
yes,
coming for you.
the canceled culture, but I am so open to being educated, but like be patient with us too. But having open conversations and also on me being receptive to that. You have to be receptive to that.
And showing up and being
Yes,
open, yeah.
you cannot just shut down and be like, "You believe this, I believe this, we're never gonna agree on anything." That's boring. If you have friends that are identical to you, exactly the same, that
Mhm.
is boring. I don't
And
wanna
it's not
surround
a
my people that
reflection
way.
of the real world,
Yes,
right? That's not how the world really is and how it works.
exactly. I wanna know your perspective. I want you to tell me you disagree with me and tell me why. Like, I'm so receptive to that.
Absolutely. And I think I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and she pointed out sort of the change in public opinion in the States when gay marriage became legalized, and
Yes.
how that was like a slow rolling tide. And it's a similar identity that you can't change and you're born with, and
Mhm.
that's your existence for a lot of people. And just how people came around and the allyship grew there as
Yes.
well. And I think that we can see the same things happening. Obviously, the systems of oppression are different,
Yes.
but I think that's a great model because in a lot of places in the United States, it's totally imperfect, but it's almost become accepted. It's like this is part
Yes.
of it's our litigation, it's part of our history now, and it's normalized completely. And I think that's awesome. And as long as we keep moving towards those places, and you're right, having those
Exactly.
conversations, that's all we can hope for at this
Exactly.
point, right? Or else what? We're gonna
Absolutely.
burn the whole fucking thing down, and
Right.
people are gonna secede
Start
again, and
over,
it's
like
yeah.
Hit it!
Time for indulgences, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what I'm talking about. Wait!
We are now paying our penance at the Center's Debate Club.
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
I don't want to cut our other conversation short, but I love that you brought up sex positivity stuff. It's so important. I think.
So important.
Is there like a jumping off point? Is there something that comes to top of mind that you would love to start with, or a story or anything? Because I'm open to all of it.
I have 3 stories
Oh,
for you.
yes, yes.
I have 3. I think 2 of them are on TikTok, but I've got 3
Okay,
stories for you
awesome.
on this one. So the one that I posted to my TikTok that sparked a huge conversation, and it goes back to, let's all be open with our conversations. Let's not
Mhm,
argue.
mhm.
But this girl that I grew up with, I was really good friends with, and she kind of just blurted out one day. Like I had said something to her. We were probably like 11 or 12, and I had said something to her, and her response was, "Oh, well, you can't do that. Like sex is illegal before marriage." And
I
I was
did
like,
see this TikTok. Oh my god, this is such a good story.
"Yes." And I was like, "What
She
do you
truly believed
mean?"
that?
100% at like
Wow.
11 or 12 years old. I don't know what I said, something offhanded, and she was like, "Oh, but sex before marriage is illegal." And my mind was blown. My parents, especially my mom was a birth doula.
Oh,
So
awesome.
she's all about that. So she's always been so open. Like I used to have this activity book about like periods and stuff like
Love
that, and
it,
like
love
yeah.
it.
So I've just grown up super sex positive household. Like, be educated. If you're gonna have sex, be protected. So yeah,
Mhm.
when this girl said that to me, I was just taken aback. I was like, no, it is not. And I got in so much trouble. Her mom came marching over to our
No.
house and screamed at me
Oh,
about
no.
it. Oh, yes.
Did you have to,
So
like, formally apologize?
no, I refused. I was like, "This is ridiculous. You told your kid that sex before marriage is illegal." And then she got pregnant
Wow.
twice in high school. And now
Oh
that
my god,
whole
no.
yes, I think she's on her 3rd kid now. She also had 2 older sisters, and they both
Jeez.
had kids in high school as well. So
Obviously, you're not doing it right. You're not doing it
I
right.
got a lot of backlash on that because it was like it's part of my religion and like I've always been taught abstinence, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, have sex willy-nilly. I'm just saying if you're going to teach your kids to abstain from sex until marriage, tell them why. Don't just say don't just say because sex is bad. Tell them why. Have that open conversation. Don't just teach them either A, never talk about sex because that's not productive. You're going to be shocked when it happens.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or B, saying sex is bad. Like that's my big thing is that sex isn't bad. There's a right and a wrong way to go about it. You have to know what you're up against. That's the point I was trying to get across. And I don't know if I missed the mark or people interpreted it in different way, but it was about education. Tell your
Absolutely.
kids 100% like this is why you should abstain from sex. Give them the options. Talk to them about birth control and contraceptives. Talk to them about STDs. Talk to them about
Yes.
early pregnancies. Don't just say don't have sex because it's bad or not talk about it at all. And that's so hard. And I was kind of like this mother figure to my friends in high
Oh, I
school. Like,
love it.
all my friends would come to me if like they needed a pregnancy test or something. They'd be like, "My parents would kill me," and I'd be like, "Girl,
Oh,
I got
I
you."
got you.
Yeah, I got you. This other
Everyone
girl,
needs a friend like that. Oh my god, you must have been a
yes,
lifesaver. Or
yes,
everyone needs to be that person for themselves.
exactly. And then I would go to my mom and I'd be like, "Mom, I need a pregnancy test for this friend," and they'd be like, "I got you." Like,
That's awesome.
this girl that I was friends with was a freshman and she couldn't get her tampon out, so she put
Oh
another one
no.
in
Oh
and she had
no.
no idea what toxic shock syndrome was. And the amount of girls that are in their late teens, early 20s that don't know what that is
Oh
because
my
no one
god.
ever taught them blows my mind. Blows my mind.
That's so problematic.
So
So
problematic.
unhealthy. Ugh.
Exactly. Like, just talk to your kids. Be open. Like, it's awkward, I'm sure. I mean, I'm not a parent, but I'm sure
Yeah.
it's awkward. That's your, like, baby.
We can only imagine, right?
If you're having that open conversation and open dialogue, your kids are more likely to come to you. When I lost my virginity, my mom found out because I told my therapist. My therapist was like, "We got to tell your mom." But then after that, it's always been so open. And like, I've always had that relationship with my mom, and it's just so important. But I know that so many young girls and guys, I'm sure, don't have that relationship with their parents. And that's hard. That's
It's
so
so
hard. I
hard.
I can't even imagine. having that relationship with my parents where I couldn't tell them anything or couldn't discuss anything because that what do you do? That's
Right?
scary.
That must be so hard. I feel like if you start with the door closed, the thing is gonna be insurmountable. Like, you're creating
Exactly.
more boogeymen for your children. There's already enough boogeymen in the world for your children to encounter. Why
Yes,
would you wanna make sex one of them? I have such a problem with, like, the puritanical approach
I
to sex in
know.
the United States. It's so shitty, and people are gonna do it
Yep.
anyway. Like, kids are gonna do it anyway. Kids are gonna learn how to drive. You teach them how to put a seatbelt on. Why not do the
Mhm.
same thing with sex?
Exactly.
Right? It's like
Exactly. And like
we're at the sorry, go for it.
those states that only teach abstinence in school, which how
Ugh,
dare
oh
they?
my
Like,
god.
what do you mean? There's still states that only teach abstinence in school.
It's
But
disgusting.
yes, but if you look at their pregnancy rates, they are so much higher than any other state. Like they
Right,
statistically they are so much higher in teen pregnancy than other states because they're going to have sex, they're teenagers. Like they're gonna have sex and they don't know the repercussions of that.
right, and then they're not safe, and then it's less
Exactly.
healthy. It's probably less emotionally healthy for them at that point as well,
Exactly.
and those fuckers somehow can ignore the
Oh,
statistics and the
I
data.
know.
Like
Exactly, like, the people commenting being like, "Well, I was only taught abstinence, and that's what I live by." I'm like, "That's great, but why? Tell me
right,
why.
right,
Tell me why, not just because you've been told your whole life, tell me why." If it's your religion, 100% I support that, no problem. If it's because your parents told you not to have sex, why?
right.
Push them a little bit, be like, "But why?" And then they're gonna come out and hopefully not because I told you so, but because
Right.
you could get pregnant as a teen, because it's special for you, because you might get an STD. Tell them
Mhm.
why, don't just say, "Because I said so."
Oh my god, absolutely. And even I think with the religious thing, growing up in a small town,
Mhm.
a lot of my friends were heavily religious. I've never been religious. My parents let me explore,
Yes.
but I just never got into it. It's not part of my identity at all.
Right.
And I received a lot of shame from one of my friends who, she gave me the phone call after I told her I lost my virginity. She's like, "Well, I'm praying for you," and all this stuff. And it was hard for her then when she fell in love for the first time and she wanted to engage in sexual activity with this
Yes.
guy. It was all based around shame and sinning as opposed to being like a really powerful, healthy, empowering, wonderful thing for her. And our relationship totally disintegrated after that because I
Mhm.
didn't know how to like reach across and be like, this is okay and
It is
I want to
okay.
celebrate it with you, and
Yes.
I'm not a bad person for doing what I did, you
Yep.
know?
And I've had lots of people in high school. I was like, stamp on my forehead, like slut. Like that
Oh
was my
god.
title, like
They had
in
to
high
label
school.
you. Oh,
Yes, that was it. Because like I lost my virginity to, and he actually was the guy that I was in my last toxic relationship
oh
with
my gosh.
because I
It
dated him
goes
when I was
full circle.
14. I dated him when I was 14, didn't talk to him, and then got back together with him when I was 20. Like, that's
Wow.
insane, right? That I mean, not good. My
Yeah.
mom even told me, "Remember what happened when you were 14?" And I was like, "Mom,
Oh,
he's different. He's an adult."
right.
No.
He's grown.
But yeah, when I was in high school, I got stamped on my forehead,
Ugh.
just slut. Like that was my thing. That was what everyone branded me as. And I had this friend when I was a senior in high school that was very religious, but we were really good friends. And we ended up ending our relationship because she told me that I was like the devil and blah, 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 blah.
Oh god, yeah.
Because that's just how
Sounds
she was
familiar.
raised. Like, that's just how she was raised. And you can't go about that because teenagers are going to have sex and it's not bad when you know what to do, when you
Right.
know the steps to take. And just because you choose not to have sex and you choose to abstain from sex until marriage doesn't mean that your friend that doesn't do that is a horrible person and is
Right.
going to hell and needs to be saved. It just means that they're at different points in growing up. I think that
Absolutely.
it's really a coming to age experience. And I think that they're just at a different point. Some people come to age when they're young, some are a little bit older, and that's totally fine.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think people find our identities with our bodies are so different for so many different people, like
Mhm.
I one of my female friends who, totally progressive in every
Mhm.
way, like, attends the slut walks and everything,
Yes.
awesome about all that stuff. She hadn't had an orgasm before her 21st birthday. She was like, I want a man to give this to me, and I don't really know how because I feel ashamed. So I
Yes.
bought her a book and I gave her a coupon for a vibrator. But it
Yes.
was just like, girl, you get to own that part of yourself, and there's
Yep.
nothing wrong with exploring that part of yourself, but goddamn, like do it for
Yes.
you. It's
Yes.
really mind-boggling how much women especially get trapped with all this.
Absolutely. And like the whole orgasm thing as a woman is so difficult because I am that way. Some girls are just, it's just more difficult to have an orgasm.
Yeah,
And I'm that way 100%. And it's about, again, open communication. And I think if
right? Imagine that.
yes, if your parents are closed about communication with sex, you're going to be closed off with your partner about sex.
Mhm.
Like that communication barrier is going to just link right over onto your relationships. And
Absolutely.
yes, and I'm so thankful now that I'm in a relationship. The other day, this might be TMI,
No, no,
but the
please,
other
please.
day, my boyfriend, like, we had a whole ass he's right over there. I feel like he's blushing. He's like holding his head like this, like, stop telling strangers this. But like, we had such an open conversation because he knows that it's difficult for me to orgasm, and for some girls, it's just more difficult.
Right.
And that's not something that's talked about a lot, but like my boyfriend had an open conversation that he initiated with me about like
Oh,
what feels
awesome.
good, right?
Oh, oh my god,
He's a
kudos
good
to
one. I
him.
know. About like what feels good, what doesn't feel good, which is better, A, B, or C. Like,
Mhm.
and I think that when you have that open communication with your partner, it's so much better. Like, don't be
Oh,
afraid to have those, conversations. And I think it all goes back to your parents and your household.
mhm.
If you have open communication with them, you're going to be more able to have those communications with your partner because you're more comfortable and it's not as taboo. And then you're going to start having great sex.
Hell yes, hell
Right?
yes,
And
absolutely.
everyone deserves great sex.
That's so true. I feel like, yeah, that point of connection, I feel like, being emotionally vulnerable for guys
Mhm.
too, if you can open that door a little bit in your household, in your family, or even
Yes.
as a friend, like, men who
Mhm.
have male friends that are
Yes.
willing to go there with them and support them in those spaces, I think it's so important. There's so many guys I know, I don't know when the last time they had an STD test, they just are
Yes.
irresponsible about it, or, my I dated some good guys, but my boyfriend in high school, the sex was kind of problematic, and I didn't know it at the time,
Mhm.
and he just wouldn't go down on me, and I didn't
Yep.
know what I wanted. I kid you not, when my college boyfriend went down on me and I orgasmed for the first time, I cried. I
Yes.
Because I didn't think I was deserving of it. I thought
Yes.
my body wasn't working and that I could just never have that with a man because
Of
sex
course.
was a man being pleasured, and no
Mhm.
man had tried to be generous with me in that way before, and
Yes.
like you say, like, figure out what the woman wants, and
Yes.
that changed everything for me. It was like a revolutionary moment, but I had to stumble through all this other bullshit beforehand,
Right?
you
Exactly.
know?
You have to have so much bad sex before you're like, "Hey, this is what I like, this is what I don't like," and then
Yeah,
you gain the confidence to actually express that to someone. And it
right?
does take a certain level of being comfortable with that person, but put it out there. What are they gonna say? No?
Yeah,
Okay, bye.
right.
Like, if you don't wanna have good sex, that's on you.
Right. I know, and the women that I understand wanting to fake it. There's some
I
reasons in
know.
place, but you're just perpetuating a system, ladies.
Yes.
Guys don't want that. Well, I would hope.
And
Guy
they're gonna think that what they did worked, and they're gonna
Works.
do that
Yeah.
every day, even
Yeah.
though it's terrible. They're gonna do that
Right.
every single time because you faked it and they think you had a real one.
Right. You wouldn't let your mechanic get away with it. Why would you let
Right?
someone that should be, like,
Yes.
helping your spacesuit out do that, you
Yes.
know?
Exactly. Like, just have that open conversation with them. If you don't like something, tell them, speak up. Don't have bad sex for the rest of your life. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's a
Yeah.
trap. But I think it does take time and not to brand myself with that slut, but multiple sexual partners to figure out what you like
Yes.
and what you don't like.
Yes.
Like it takes
Absolutely.
time and to feel like, hey, that sexual partner that I had in the past, the sex that we had wasn't okay. And sometimes
Mhm.
that takes time too to figure out
Mhm.
that that's not normal and that's not okay. And I
Right.
actually saw this post and it's really stuck with me that some girls have a higher body count than other girls. And I hate that phrase, body
Body
count.
count, yeah.
Yeah, but some girls have a higher body count than other girls because we are too afraid to say no and we're too
Mm,
afraid to turn guys down. So,
mm.
and I feel like I fit into that
Yeah.
category. Like, I've had sex with, I mean, not quite a few people, but like a higher number of people.
Sure.
And I think that I fall into that category because it's not that I don't want to have sex, but it's like, yeah, I could go for some sex or I could not.
Yeah.
But like, I'm not confident enough to be like, no,
Yeah.
And I think that's super interesting, that concept, because I've never heard of that. And I'm like, I think I fit into that category of I've just have a higher body count because I'm not confident enough to be like, nah, not really. Not really
Right.
feeling it. I just go
Right.
for it. And I think
And
that's
then
interesting.
all the emotional baggage that may or may not come with that, right? It works out
Exactly.
well sometimes and it doesn't others. Like, yeah, I feel like I was pretty much a serial monogamist for a while and then I
Mhm.
was single for a while and just dating around and it was so fucking empowering. And then when it stopped being empowering, I stopped doing it, but it's
Yes.
to be able to be like, okay, I'm making this decision for myself and I'm not gonna feel one way or the other about how my response to this man is
Yes.
affecting him. You know, outside of being a shithead and an asshole, right?
Yes.
You wanna treat people with dignity, but it is hard to get to that space where, like, you're okay enough with yourself and in your power and say, "No, this isn't for me at this
Yeah.
time," right? Like, that you have to
Exactly.
exercise that muscle a lot
Yes,
too,
like, you don't have to have sex with every guy that propositions you for
right?
sex. Like, that was, like, mind-blowing to me. I was like, "What? Really?" Yeah, so and I think it's just weird because I definitely am in that headspace where I'm like, yeah, if, like, I find a guy attractive and, like, he, like, puts on the moves, I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, alright," but, like, even if I'm not that into it, I'm like, "Yeah, alright, whatever," but,
Yeah,
like, I think it definitely takes a certain type of person and growing and knowing yourself to be able to say, "No,
yeah,
not feeling it."
yeah.
It really does.
And I think that can be applied to, like, different sex acts in bed or how frequently you
Yes.
have sex with your partner, if you wanna impress someone or if you wanna be, like, that girl and you
Yes.
expect to do X, Y, or Z things even if you're not there. I've been there plenty of times and kind of have regrets about that kind of stuff, but it's all a learning experience.
Yes. It
Yeah,
absolutely is. I even had a friend, actually it was the one that I called a "see you next Tuesday," who's no longer a friend, but I
RIP.
had a friend. I know, for real. But yeah, she was with this guy. She might still be with him. I'm not sure. I'm not caught up on her life, but
Yeah, you're
she
not
was with
Insta
a
stalking
guy.
her.
No, no, I am not. And I actually, so she was with this guy, and I actually hooked up with that guy's younger brother. And
Okay.
apparently, this sexual trend runs in the family. They are all about hitting girls in the face during sex,
Oh,
like
okay.
full blown, like,
With
and
permission before?
no, it just
Oh,
happens, and it is
Jesus.
not a little hit. It's not like a little slap around. It is a full thing, so much so that I dislocated my jaw, and that was the last time for me.
Oh my
My
gosh.
friend, so she was dating the older brother, and the older brother did the exact same thing, and I guess she flinched from him one time, and he said to her, "Oh, you don't like that?" And she goes, "No," and then he did it again.
What the fuck?
Again.
What the fuck?
Yes! I don't know where those boys taught it,
Yeah.
what their daddy told them, but, like, that is a no-go. We don't hit girls in the face during sex.
Wow, Jesus Christ.
And, like, there's one thing about, wanting rough sex, but it's another thing of being
Sure.
confident enough to draw that line and saying, "I don't like it when you do this. Please don't
Yeah,
do it again." And
yeah.
them respecting that. Obviously, he didn't respect that, but my current boyfriend, I told him, "Yo, stop pulling my hair. It
Mhm.
kills me inside."
Yeah.
And he respects that. So
Hell yeah.
if you have that open communication and they don't respect it, say bye to them and then go have open communication with someone that will respect that,
Right.
because that's so important, because sex is such like As I've gotten older, I've realized this, but it's such like a trusting thing.
Oh,
It's such
yeah.
a vulnerable thing. When I was younger, I don't think got that connected. I was like, yeah, whatever. But
Yeah,
like
yeah.
now, I'm like, it is a vulnerable thing, and they should respect you. They should. If you don't like something, tell them, and if they don't listen, goodbye.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing when the expectation of consent at all times isn't the standard.
Right.
You know, it's like, "Oh, it's a new thing now," like, everyone asks for
Yes.
consent and we acknowledge it. It's like, how was that not the fucking deal this
Right.
whole time?
I
Even with a
know.
casual hookup when you don't even wanna see them the next day, it's like,
Exactly.
you shouldn't be worrying about dislocating your jaw.
Exactly.
Unless you're like, "Sign me up for a
Yeah, if
fucking
I'm
jaw
like, yep,
dislocation."
I
Yeah.
want you to hit me in the face as hard as you can.
Green light, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, consent is such a weird thing too now because it's hard for people to realize that just because you're in a relationship with someone or even if you're married to someone, consent isn't implied. You don't get
Yep.
consent forever. Like it's not like a forever thing. Just because you give consent to one person one time doesn't mean they're going to get it every single time. And that's a
Mhm.
hard thing I think for people to process when they're in long-term relationships especially or marriages too, that
Mhm.
just because you've had sex in the past doesn't mean that you're willing to whip it out whenever.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
yeah, absolutely. I feel like yeah, I've had some of those moments of shame of, you know, being in the middle of sex and just kinda thinking like, "Oh, I said I didn't want this. Why is this
yes,
happening?" Even with a
exactly.
long-term partner, it's like,
Mhm.
and then are you the bitch if you're like, "Well,"
Exactly. And
having to deal with those demons too.
it's those, like, women stereotypes of, "No, I'm too tired." That's a legitimate
Right?
excuse. If
"You
you're
wanna
too
fuck with a
tired
headache, dude? Can
yeah,
you get a boner with a headache?"
exactly. Like, don't feel like a stereotype of a woman if you say, "No, I'm too tired. No, I have a headache. No, I don't feel good. No, I had a bad day."
Mm,
Say it. If they don't respect it or if they roll their eyes, goodbye.
right,
Like, you can say no if you're in a committed relationship.
right.
Absolutely. And I think that's hard for people to grasp that concept of someone that is your regular sex partner.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that you are always giving consent.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, people are not deserving no one is deserving of your body.
Exactly. And you're not alone. Like, seriously, going through one thing, there's millions of other people that have gone through that exact weirdly
Mhm.
specific one thing.
Right.
Like, there's
Oh god,
so many
so
other
true.
people that have been through that same thing. You just don't know it, and you won't know it unless you talk about it.
It's so true, and I feel
Mhm.
like it's so sad. I mean, it's really inspiring hearing you talking about leaving your toxic relationship
Yes.
because there's such a stuckness that people get into, myself included, I've been
Mhm.
there. Just thinking about living your life without the norms and standards that you could have for yourself, that you
Yes.
don't have to be rigid about, but just that are, like, enriching and fulfilling and sexually healthy.
Yes.
There are how many billions of people on the planet, you don't think you can find the guy that initiates that conversation,
Yes.
right? And it seems like the
Exactly.
standards are so low. He's like,
So
"Oh, he
low.
listens to me when I talk. Check."
Yes.
You
The
know?
lowest of low, but, and I always thought when I was in my toxic relationship, what if this is normal? What if this amount of fighting
Yeah.
is normal? What if this amount of control is normal? What if this is how all relationships are supposed to be like? And that's why I
Mhm.
stuck around so far. What if the grass isn't greener on the other side?
Yeah, that's the
But
trap, isn't it?
yes, but then I
Mhm.
did it, and now that I'm in a healthy relationship, I'm like, wow, like this is what relationships are actually supposed to be like. That was the more time that goes on, like when I was in that relationship, I knew it was toxic, but the more time that goes on, the more I think about it, I'm like, God, that was so bad. That was
Mm.
so bad.
Mhm.
And yeah, you're feel so alone and stuck. And what if I can't make it by myself? Or what if I never feel this way about someone else?
Right.
Or what
"Oh,
if
but
this
he
is
says he
normal?
really loves me." Yeah.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. What if this is normal? What if this is what all relationships are like? If you have to think that, if that moment comes across that you're like, maybe this is what all relationships are like, even though they're shitty, no, this is
Right.
not what all relationships are like. No,
Right.
like it shouldn't be that way. And it is so scary. And like I was such a statistic of like,
Mm.
maybe he'll change or
Oh
maybe it
God.
won't always be that way. But
Yeah.
I'm like, after 3 years, you're not gonna fucking change. You're just
Yeah.
not. I
Yeah.
was such a statistic and I like rolled my eyes at my mom who was like, you know that you're being such a stereotypical, like in an abusive relationship. And I'm
Oh.
like, no, it's fine. It's totally fine. But
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so hard to see the forest for the trees, though, when you're in the middle of it. All of this you have built and created and done for yourself. Even
Yes.
finding that other healthier
Yes.
relationship, you initiated that.
Mhm.
You took action and you fucking did it, and
Yes.
that's awesome.
Yeah, this person that I've become in such a small amount of time is all thanks to leaving a toxic relationship. I would
Mhm.
have never done this if I had stayed in that 3-year-long relationship. I would have never done it. Like, it's all thanks to leaving that relationship. It really is. And, it's hard and it's tough and it's scary and there's a lot of what ifs, but it's worth it.
Mhm.
It's so worth it.
Was there anything that helped you? I feel like the moment a lot of people get stuck is right before kind of pulling the cord and cutting ties, or right after when you're kind of like, oh, I'm scared. Was this the right thing to do?
Hmm.
Were there things that like helped carry you through to where it hurts less and you feel more okay about being gone from it?
That's such an interesting question in this. So when I broke up with him right around Christmas. And
Mhm.
for
Oh, the
Christmas, I know
holidays.
it was
Oh god.
literally I told him on Christmas Day that I was leaving as I was
Savage. I
wrapping
love
his
it.
presents for his family. Like I'm like, "I'm
You get a
leaving
bag of coal.
you." Like he went out that day and bought me it must have been the day before that, on Christmas Eve. He went out that day and bought me a $45,000 engagement ring. He bought me $2,000
What?
earrings and he put a
Oh my god.
stack of $1,000 on my bedside table and said,
Literally cash he was
cash
trying to buy
money. And
you?
he said, don't leave me. Quit your job. I'll financially support you. Here's $1,000. And I kept saying no. Every day after that, I woke up and there was another thousand on the stack. And
You're shitting
yeah,
me.
so
That's so manipulative.
exactly. And he said, I'll pay off your student loans in full in cash. I will pay for you to live. You won't have to work ever again, whatever. Like, here's this engagement ring. You've always wanted to get married, but it was all like trying to slap a band aid on it. Like, these things I've been
Yeah.
asking for 3 years. He was just trying to slap a band aid on it last minute when he knew he was going to leave. And
And he realized you were serious and he
yep,
got
he
desperate.
got
You're like, "Send that money to
desperate.
my
Right?
OnlyFans, bitch."
I'm like, "You got that right here." Yeah, and so he did all of that literally, like, the week that I was, like, moving out and everything up until the last, like, car drove away with my stuff in it. He did all of that, and honestly, I didn't ever look back, which really told me that I checked out from that relationship
Mm,
months prior. I never
yeah,
felt like I was missing him. I never felt like I missed out on something, like it was a bad decision because I had checked out mentally and emotionally from that relationship months prior. Like he
mm,
used to scream and yell at me, and in the beginning of our relationship I would scream and yell back, and then by the end I was
mm,
just so exhausted. I was lucky enough that my dad let me land at his place. He never lives in
good.
his house. He's always traveling for work, so I just stayed there and laid low and did what I did and moved forward.
And now he can just be, comedic fodder on TikTok.
Exactly. His stepmom and his stepbrother follow me on TikTok and
Are
they
you
yes,
serious?
they both text me and they're like, "Is this about him?" And I'm like, "Yes." And they're like,
Oh
"That's
god.
hilarious."
Complacency also is a bitch, but when you
Mhm.
realize finally when you're at that point and enough is enough. And, if people don't have, like, a dad's house or a
Yes.
place to fall back on, sometimes friends are the people that you need to reach out to, even
Exactly.
if you're embarrassed about staying in something for as long as
Yes.
someone has, it's so
It
tricky. But
is.
it does, I think, only get easier when you're out of
Exactly.
it.
And there's so many resources too. If you're in an
Mm,
abusive relationship or a toxic relationship or just an unhealthy relationship, there's tons of resources in the community that
mhm,
are free, whether it's counseling, whether it's a soft place to land. Talk to someone if you got to talk to someone, but keep moving after that. Take the time to recover and recoup. But then hit the ground running and show them that fuck you for firing me, or fuck you for keeping me in an abusive
yeah,
relationship. Fuck
yeah,
you, the world, for coming down on me, but I'm gonna come up from it. And that's
right.
it.
if you can, grab the bull by the horns and have that attitude.
Yes.
For sure.
I just posted today on my Instagram the things that you can control in your life. And it's hard sometimes to think about the things that you can control, but there are things that you can
Mm,
control, whether it's your mood and or your finances or your body or whatever. There are things that while it's hard to admit that you can control them, and that's all we can do right now. When the world is out of control, all we can do is focus on the things that we can control within us. And sometimes that's
yeah.
hard, but you got to identify those things so that you feel a little more grounded with everything going crazy around us.
I think that's an awesome message. I think I'm probably gonna wrap on
Yeah,
that, if that's
absolutely.
cool. Are there places that people can find your boutique, and can we
Absolutely. Yes. So you can find me not so Paige on Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube, and TikTok is all not so Paige. And then my boutique is Prickly Poppy Collective on Instagram or Facebook. You can find me there too.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much
Yes,
for coming on and doing this.
of
I
course.
so appreciate it. It's been
Anytime.
awesome.
Just let me know. I loved it.
All right, many thanks again to Paige for coming on the podcast. I have all of her social links wherever you're listening to this episode. Thanks so much, everyone. If you're enjoying, please rate and subscribe. And I'm going to send us off this week with You and You and You by James Garden. Have a beautiful week. Get into some good trouble.
I wrote this while sitting in Terminal B. The words just flow like they were searching for me. These people unlock my heart without turning the key. My only goal is you go further than me. There ain't a better feeling I can ask for. All year I've been trying to hit fast forward while I watch my patience run. Now my favorite days have come. We waited 10 long months. Now we're finally here. This is our special place where we can be ourselves with no fear. We waited 10 long months. Now we're finally here. We can love all our friends without no fears. This one's for you and you and you and you and you and you. This one's for you and you and you and you and you and you. This one's for you and you and you and you and you and you. This one's for you and you and you. I promise you this place is magic, and the love that we feel is so massive. But when the buses roll up and my friends show up, I get so excited I can hear the backflip. Pizza lunch, once you go and drop your bags off. Let's go to Rock Band so I can get some tracks off. All over the globe is where y'all live, and now we're better for having been. We waited 10 long months. Now we're finally here. This is our special place where we can be ourselves with no fear. We waited 10 long months. Now we're finally here. We can love all our friends without no fears. This one's for you and you and you and you and you and you. This one's for you and you and you and you and you and you. This one's for you and you and you and you and you and you. This one's for you and you and you.
This one's for you and you and you. This one's for you and you and you. This one's for you and you and you. You and you and you. And you. Yeah. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.